All right, this is the first episode of Jack and Work Friends, where we have conversations about work and sort of non-forced. We're not forced to be here, so we can just like talk about topics that interest us. Um, yeah, my name's Jack, and me and Farhaan used to work on the same team. Actually, it's both of our first jobs. Farhaan started 1 year before me, but we were on uh, JP Morgan data science team back in 2020. That's when I started. And Farhan is an analytics solutions VP, right? Analytics solutions VP. And basically, analytics solutions, it's kind of like, I'd say, the way I would describe it is it's sort of like half consulting, half project management on data science related projects. And we started off in like a rotational program, but now Farhan is a VP at an AI ML solutions team. So yeah, now I'll let Farhan introduce himself.
Yeah, no, thanks. Appreciate it. And yeah, so thanks for having me as the first guest. Yeah, so yeah, so my team, I was just thinking, it's like you said 2020, and I was like, yeah, started in 2019. It always seems crazy to think it's like, oh, that was
Yeah.
like 5 years
Yeah.
ago or like 6 years ago. I'm even thinking at work, I was like, man, because first of all, that was only like last year. It's like, no, it was a long time ago. Yeah, it was great working with you back then. And so, yeah, I'm on a team at ML Solutions. I'm a product manager now, mostly in charge of like model serving and then some like annotation and also like ML ops stuff.
Is it like I always tell people this like when I go to like work conferences and stuff. I always tell them like I was in data science before it sort of like blew up and like in like I guess before when you said like data science or AI, everyone's just talking about like neural networks at most, but most of the time like like just linear regression and logistic regression and things like that. I guess in your new position, is it like the LLM AI or is it still kind of like linear regression, logistic, like like random forest, right? Like that type of thing.
Yeah, no, that's exact. So it's like we joke that we call it like traditional AI, and then it's just like generative stuff,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like my world is mostly focused on traditional, but like generative always creeps in. Like one of my peers actually does generative, like building the generative
Mm.
platforms. And everyone always asks me about that stuff, and I'm joking. I'm like, yeah, ask if it's like joking. But no, of course it's like everywhere. But yeah, it's just joking. Like we even say the same thing. It's like, oh man, like old school data science. Yeah, like neural
Yeah.
networks, like old school data science, right? But like I still feel like it's very important, especially in like companies like banks or even just like anything that's like industrial focused. But Gen AI is the new cool thing, so that's what like everyone always asks about, especially if they like don't know a lot about the technical stuff and just know about buzzwords. It's very great to just like throw that in there. Like, oh, you can help me out with my Gen AI stuff, right? I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure. This has nothing to do with that, but like, yeah, don't worry. Absolutely, I got you. Whatever you need.
Yeah, dude, did you know? I think I read somewhere that like have been around for a while, but like OpenAI was just the first one to make it like commercially accessible.
Heard that like yeah, so people say it's like the bird models or like whatever. Yeah, that style of model I guess has been around for a long time. Again, it's the same thing. People are like, oh, you're using this like 5-year-old version, like it's like prehistoric, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, of course, because they say it's like exponential growth, like we hit that part where everything starts growing now. But yeah, it's sometimes funny to think about. It's like, oh, this version's not that old. They're like, no, 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 no. This is like you can't even use this. Completely useless. I'm like, okay, but it was the basis for like everything we use today, and like for most use cases it's probably okay. I mean, I know like BERT is probably like older school, but still, I have heard that like yeah, it's based on things that people have been trying for a long, long
Yeah,
time.
speaking of that, dude, I didn't know this. Do you know Sonnet 4 just came out today?
No, I
Okay.
didn't know that.
Well, that brings up another thing. It's just like, and one reason why I just wanted to talk to like different people and different like jobs is I feel like at my company and like when I go to these like AI startup conferences, everyone like knows about like the new models and like these new tools. But I think one reason is like I don't know, we're like more sensitive to the hype, I would say, especially since like we're trying to build for the future. So part of it is like riding the hype. Um, yeah, like I know when I was at JP Morgan, I always felt like they were kind of like slower and there's just like more regulation. Like everything needs to be like just tried and true, right? You have to go through like a lot of red tape, especially like I think I heard when I was at JP Morgan, they'd even let us use like ChatGPT and things like that. What is it like now?
Yeah. So that's definitely changed. I think like I know that was the big thing everyone was asking. Like I know when it came out, they're very specific. Like you can't send us any information. I think it's just because in general, a lot of our data is like customer
Yeah.
data, right? So it's like it's the same concept as like, hey, like you probably want to like, you want to make sure whoever's using your banking data is like using it correctly and like in an official way, and especially because there's like a lot of personal information there. So I think that's the biggest. I don't want to call it like essentially like thing we have to worry about. I was gonna say like roadblock, but like it's a roadblock for a
Yeah.
good reason. I'm just like, hey, anything we want to use, and that's still like, in my experience, I do work on some like the LLM stuff from like a platform perspective. It's the biggest thing too. There, they're like, how are you sending the data to them? Like, how are they like, are you truly sending it? Because that's a big thing. It's like you don't want to send any data
Yeah.
out. Like how are they sending it back? Like, is it encrypted? Like, what are they training on it? All that other
Yeah.
stuff. But it's like until you can guarantee that, essentially like, guarantee the safety of like the data, like our cybersecurity team and everyone like that feels good as you work at the company, like that takes a long time. So like until all that's done, or at least they've built infrastructure to feel generally comfortable, then you have to hold on it. So yeah, I completely agree. It's like I've heard that a lot of these, especially at these conferences and like companies like yours, like when you're way more on the cutting edge, you'll hear about like what we're doing, and be like, well, you guys are like way behind, and it's like yeah, but unfortunately, by the time we get the stuff in that you guys are using, it's probably already like prehistoric.
Yeah. What do they let you use now? Like, can you use like a chat GPT-esque thing to like write emails and things like that?
Yeah. So they have it. I think this is public. Like, if you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
it, I'll
yeah.
check on it just to
Yeah.
make sure. But it's just like, yeah. So it's like, yeah. So we use a thing essentially. It's called like LLM Suite, and so LLM Suite's like an internally based tool. Like it runs off GPT, and you can even like choose like the different types of GPT
Okay.
models, and they allow you to send like you're allowed to use like work information on it. In fact, like more recently, there's even like knowledge bases, and like the concept there is just like, hey, like can you like essentially teach it about our information, and then they can read back to you, and like it's been super useful in the sense of just like especially if you have like reading documents, scanning all the other
Yeah.
stuff. Like you have this huge controls document, you want to be like, hey, can you summarize this for me, or like tell me what's important out of it? Of course, all of it's important, very big document, but like there's parts of it that you're just like, I wish I. What is very important to me? Like, what do I actually care about? But like, it's really useful for that.
Okay. Dude, I don't think I talked to you about this like when we got breakfast back in the winter, but I'm like a pretty I would say I'm like the people who like are really gun ho about AI. I'm on like the opposite side of the spectrum, honestly. Like I was telling my coworker if like AI disappeared tomorrow, I would actually be more happy. I think I'd be happier about it. For a lot of different reasons, but I try not to use it a ton day to day. Like, I think my biggest use cases personally is like if I'm having bugs in code, I'll just like copy and paste it and be like, can you find me the error? Other than that, I try not to let it write for me. Like, I don't like that. Yeah, I don't let it like mess with emails or anything like that either. But yeah, I guess like I wanted to ask you like, how do you use AI day to day, like at work in the company with like the tools that you're allowed? And then do you feel like do you feel like you use it more or less than say like your coworkers?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's interesting. The use cases you described not using it, I do like you for some of those things. I mean, like, like it kind of saves the history of what we've been using it for, and like, it just says like, you keep asking for email punctuation checks, and I'm like, yeah, sometimes like I write an email, I'm like, is this punctuated correct? But it's that's not quite writing for me. It's more just like,
Yeah,
hey, before I send this email to like a lot of people, like, I just want to make sure I
yeah,
didn't like use the wrong word by accident or say something
yeah,
dumb. And most of the time it's nice. It's like, yeah, you were pretty good. You were like 80% of the way there. Like you forgot some commas. But then, I mean, to your point, it's like when you see it a bunch, you can tell it's like, see, even just changing punctuation a bit, like you can start to say it's like, yeah, this was clearly like AI written punctuation, right? Or even like the way, because like I punctuate sentences the way I talk,
yeah,
which is quickly as I've been told. That's why I miss commas a lot. But it's like when I read the sentence, like the AI punctuates it, I'm like, it feels like it's like too choppy, or like that's just not really how I would naturally say
mhm,
it, even if it's like technically correct. But that email punctuation check is my biggest use
okay,
case. I mean, we joke about sometimes it's like just for taglines, or it's like, hey, like how do we? I mean, the joking thing is like when you name a project, it should be like an acronym sometimes. Like you have a great
yeah,
project name, and you're like, okay, and how do I turn this to an acronym? Like something like that. That probably would actually take a long time if you weren't using it. Like that's like small corporate
yeah, yeah,
stuff. That's probably the biggest thing. I mean, like unfortunately, I mean, we're just talking about like how new models of things come out. It's like it would have been great as a research tool if it was like always up to date, right? But the version we have is older. So like a lot of the softwares or tooling I'm looking into, it doesn't know about yet. So then I'm like, it would be great to learn about it, or like looking into a company. But sometimes you look into it, I'm like, oh, we're looking into a company's newest offering.
Wait,
It doesn't know about
can
it. So it's
your
like this company does
can your
this. I'm like,
tools not do like web search?
I don't think. I don't think that once we have like that's fully enabled, that's something they were talking about. They're like they want to be able to summarize things like that, but it's like I don't think it's like starting to be released. It's like not fully there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Also, I will confirm if I'm allowed to say any of this. Anything I talk about that tool, just like no, I'll have to make sure I
Okay.
can say. I think I can, but I just want to make sure it's like
Yeah,
public.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Dude, honestly, it doesn't sound like you use it all that much then. How do you feel like your coworkers, I don't know, like the general, yeah, I guess the average like JPMC employee uses it?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of some funny ones, which like a lot of people that like manage big teams are kind of like, hey, like it's great because now I can just like use it to write all my performance reviews. And I was like, to be honest, like I would be a little upset being on the other side of that, right? It's like, oh, great, like I worked on this my whole year, and then my performance review is just like clearly AI slop. Like, I mean, ideally they read it and like do a little more work on it. So I've heard things like that. Of course, like the document writing is big. I know you said you don't like it for that purpose, but it's like sometimes it's like, hey, you need to write this like 50 pages, and like some of it is, I mean, like some of it just needs to be general terms, right? Or like so like a lot of the projects are based on that. The interesting use cases, these are more like generalized use cases, but like, and I won't go into like super specifics, but summarizing a ton of information seems to be like a big use case, right? It's just like even if it's for like a client or whatever it is, it's like, hey, like we have all these things we want to tell you, like can we distill that into a few points, or all these things we want to do, like how do we summarize that all down? It seems to just be like how do you process all this information better? And I mean, to your point about being skeptical about AI stuff. Like, yeah, sometimes you see those what it like drills down, and you're like, I don't think that's really what you're supposed to get out of this. Like, that's what it says, but I don't think you should take that. I really agree with you. It's like you shouldn't take it as gospel yet. Of course, like as these get better and better, like it'll be closer and closer to true. But like, it's definitely where we are now. It's like you gotta make sure what you're like reading is correct and you truly believe it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I have a bunch of different reasons why I'm like a non-AI adopter. One is like I don't wanna like for like I think it's the goal of any person who's like working to be like good at what they do, right? And if like let's say like you're an engineer or a writer, like I don't let's say I'm a writer, I don't want AI to write everything for me because then I won't be good at writing. And then one day like the company will be like, wait, like any schmuck who knows how to use AI, we can just hire them as a writer, right? So I think the ideal is like to like keep improving as a writer. And in my opinion, like I don't know like all the technical details that go on with these like large language models that go into the training, but like in my head, my mental framework is like LLMs I think will be like really good at performing average, right? Because it's like it in the end it's kind of like text prediction, so it's gonna predict what most people are probably gonna want to hear from like we ask it a question. So in my head, I'm like, oh, I think LLMs will be like as good as the average software engineer, the average writer, or the average like presentation maker, the average artist. So the only way to actually be valuable is to like be better than average. And so if you never write or like you never like code without AI, then it's gonna be harder to get better. But I did want to tell you kind of a funny story of like this is the reason that's like very, I don't know, like it's just more like frustrated me and like kind of like I got very emotional. Like it was not a logical response to it, but we went on a retreat with like my team, and part of the retreat we wanted to write like kind of like an ad skit, right? For like a commercial we could do for like my company. And I was like, oh, I think it'd be really fun if we all like wrote a skit and then we all like, like read the scripts together and then we picked the best one. It'd be like a cool like bonding experience, right? And I think me and like one other person were the only ones to write a script. And then everybody else, like day of, we're just like, oh, I'll get like ChatGPT to write a script. Be like, write me a funny script, like a TikTok style thing with like these things. And then Loki, I got like mad because I was like, dude, they're better than my ideas. Like, not gonna lie. And then we just ended up doing those. But it's kind of funny. Like that one, I was like, that one I know is like emotional and like personal, but like obviously like I'm not a professional skit writer or anything, so it's like logical to use like the better skits. But I just thought it was kind of funny. I'm like, yeah, I'm since I'm not as good as the average like TikTok skit writer, I'm just getting like I'm getting dunked on by this AI right now.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So like I think I totally agree with like most of what you said. I think the thing that would be like see like on average is the part that it's interesting to me because like when I think of it, I'm like I feel like the way, if you've heard of like agents, like I guess like the agentic concept, it's like, can you have something? My understanding, it's very basic understanding. It was like, can you essentially assume a persona of something that in theory is better than average, right? It's like we say like skits or like songs, where we're like, oh, can you have it like right in like in Shakespeare, right? Like then it's like, okay, like if it's good at like if it's good at like assuming the persona of Shakespeare, then his writing is good as Shakespeare, right?
Yeah.
Not as good, but like close enough. And then it's like, yeah, then that's way better than the average. But then to your point, it's like, is it just writing as good as like an average person thinks Shakespeare writes, or like where does that average actually come in? That's the part I'm thinking about. Yeah, because that's what like every time it says like assume a persona, like how good is it actually assuming that persona, or like how do you like can you train it well enough to actually assume a persona good enough? Like you said, like oh, it's like write something in the like I don't know any famous TikTok skit writers, obviously, but it's like right in the like the vein of the most famous
Yeah.
TikTok skit writer. It's like, is it really going to be way better? I don't know.
Wait, that's a good point actually, because I guess I think if the model is trained on like just any like random Joe's like blogs and stuff, then maybe it'll only be good as average. But if it's like only trained on like really good writers or like really good like TikToks, then yeah, it'll probably be better than average, which I don't know, not looking good for us, but
I know that's completely fair, and that's like I don't know. That's like what I hear. I don't know. That's what a lot of people talk about. They talk about the whole like they're like, oh, like LMs were really cool when they first came out, but now a lot of people are realizing, well, you're realizing that sometimes they spit out a bunch of garbage. So now, like a lot of companies, like we're going to be the ones that help you tune your LMs, or how do you like evaluate it, like evaluate how good they are and tune them. But then the joke I always hear is like, yeah, but then they're just using LLMs to do that. So like, at what point is it just like complete circle of just it's garbage in,
oh
garbage
yeah,
out? To use like a really
yeah,
phrase, but it's like the same, like you know what I mean. At one point, like, what are you doing here?
yeah, dude. Do you know about do you know about data annotators?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, I feel
yeah,
like it
very
got
much.
even more popular when like LMs and AI like started popping off. They're like, we need people to like annotate these because they don't want to train on like, like AI generated data, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's the funniest thing is like, so that's one of the products like I manage is like annotation. And like when it was like, yeah, when it was like given to me, like I guess like not quite a year ago, but maybe like 7, 8 months ago. Yeah, it was like a side thing, like whatever, like, some people are interested in annotation, like here's the use case. Can you like figure out a solution for it, build a platform? And then like like it just exploded in like the past few months. Everyone's like, hey, we need to annotate. Like we have all these like LLMs, like we need annotators, we need like people to like exactly what we said, like, hey, like we have the experts. They need to make sure that like we're just not saying a bunch of nonsense. And I'm like, wow. And now it's like literally people are asking about it all the time. And I'm like, this was kind of supposed to be like a low key thing, and now it became like a huge thing, like enough to probably be like a full time job for folks, like as the platform builds out. But yeah, it was literally just meant for one team to do what they were doing. They've been doing for a few years, like before LLMs and everything. Just they were using it to train uh like more traditional
Yeah,
models, and it's like now everyone's like, no, 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 forget that. I do all this. Like, we need to train all these LLMs with them, or I should evaluate them, I should
yeah.
say.
Here, wait, I'm gonna turn on my light real quick. One sec.
Sure.
All right, I feel like we've been talking about AI for long enough. I'm gonna move to the next thing because when we first started, like you were in Delaware, right? Which is, I mean, it's a huge office. Obviously, it's a huge campus, but then obviously you moved to New York since then. I don't know if you got this advice when you were in college, but everyone's like, oh, try to work like, where the company's headquartered. Now that you've kind of done both, right? Like, do you buy that advice and kind of like what are kind of the big differences that you see?
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess they'll probably blend a bit into like the second they're like working in NYC a decent amount, but like, um, yeah. So I've heard that advice as well. But interestingly enough, like I was able to move to New York as like one of the first ones. Like, but since I went to school in Philly, I was like I'd rather just stay. I was originally live in Philly, but stay like Philly, Delaware area. So I was like I had no interest in New York out of school. And for me, it was more just like no, it's more about like I wanted to live near my friends, and like I mean, of course, I'd be right out of school. Like, it's like yeah, I want to live near my friends, but make sure I still have fun. And like I really enjoyed I really enjoyed living in Delaware. I think Delaware is a very underrated place. I mean, unfortunately, I was there like, it was good for the first few months and then like COVID happened. But like if anything, it was a good place to be in COVID because like you have way more space and like there's way less
Yeah,
people. But it's still like a fairly nice area. And like, it's spread out enough that I never felt like claustrophobic in any way. But like office wise, I definitely say it was like way more relaxed office culture and like people were way more laid back. But that's also probably just the nature of the area. Like Philly in general is a way more laid back city. Like New York is completely different. And I will also say like Same thing with like the HQ office. Like it's not for everybody. Like some people don't like that it's like way more serious. They prefer like a more like dressed down. And even in like New York itself, like for the company, like there's a bunch of different offices here. And you like the different offices have their own vibes. I think you may have been to like Park Avenue office. That's very different to where I am now, like in the Hudson Yards.
Wait,
It's
I
more
went to
like
the Hudson.
tech
I went to the
feel.
Hudson Yards one.
Okay, you never been to the
No,
Park one?
no.
When
That's a new one, right?
okay,
277
okay.
Park.
I know 270 is like the new one that's like being built, but then 277 was like across the street. So yeah, it's
Oh,
like very,
okay.
very similar. Yeah, I know, yeah. And then like 383 Madison's like current headquarters. So they're all like right next
Okay.
to each other. But like, yeah, but even like the vibe of the areas, right? Like it's like Midtown East is like very different vibe than like Hudson Yards as a whole. And even though we have like a Brooklyn office, completely different than downtown Brooklyn. So that definitely changes like a lot of the work culture.
Okay. Do you feel like you get more visibility in New York? Like, do you feel like, I mean, I feel like you're pretty young to make VP. I feel like you had like a pretty linear, like you've been getting like promotions every couple years. Do you think that would have been the case in Delaware? And do you feel like, I don't know, like the ED and MD jump are obviously like bigger. Do you feel like it's like maybe easier in New York?
Well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. But that, yeah, I don't like it's hard to say. I think, like, truthfully, I think it depends on your team, right? Because, like, some of the teams are all based out of Delaware. Like, your leadership's based out of Delaware. Like, your managing director is there, and like, if your direct business line is all there, then it just makes sense to be like where they all are. I moved to New York completely on a whim, and it's like when I changed teams, like my entire team was here. So then it would make more sense, right? Because like it is tough. I feel like being like the one person or one or two people in like a satellite office when the rest of your team is somewhere else. And for some folks, like New York is that satellite office, right? Like their whole teams are in Delaware, whole teams are in Texas, whatever. They're just like that one person. And especially like now that we're 5 days back in office, it's like that one person that's like on the screen when like everyone else is in person that changes like the vibe entirely. So then from that perspective, yes, like visibility is a lot better. Um, but like what I also tell people, like a lot of people ask that, especially right out of school, it's I really say it's like it's really more important like your direct management line when you're more
Right.
junior. Like, yeah, of course, when you become senior, like you said, like ED, MD, yeah, for sure. You need to know a lot of like
Yeah.
other EDs and MDs, and a lot of the more senior folks sit here. But when you're more junior, like, yeah, it's cool to know if you're the managing directors, but like what's really important is like your direct management line knows who you are and knows the work you
Yeah,
do.
yeah, that's true. So I guess like working NYC, I like feel like I wanted to take it a different direction. And I feel like I can say this now since like I left JP Morgan. Let me move this down real quick. I've been trying to keep that updated. But I do feel like in Dallas in general, I'm sure like a lot of teams are headquartered in the Plano office, right? But just the fact that it's in Texas, it felt more like family oriented. I feel like people in Texas, they probably just like have families earlier, and I didn't see like a ton of teams just like putting in the grindstone like at 6 or 7 p.m., right? It's like 4 or 5 p.m. Like everyone's like, I gotta pick up my kids and I gotta go. I guess in that sense, do you feel like that's different in New York?
Like I'd say like yes and no. Like definitely when you have like a younger team, yeah, that's definitely true. But surprisingly, it seems like especially with like the more senior folks, like a lot of them live out in Brooklyn or they live out like Westchester or things like that. And it's like for them, it's almost like especially if you live in upstate New York, like or like even in Connecticut, it's like they gotta catch their train. So it's like, hey, like if I don't catch this train, then I'm here for another hour. So like I'm leaving, right? So like to some degree, some of them it's sometimes even more strict, right? It's like in Delaware and Texas, etc. You're like, yeah, I got to go do this, but like I'm just gonna hop in my car and
Yeah.
drive there. But these guys are like, I got to catch this train. So if I like, so that's why to some degree also it makes people want to stay a little later because like the rush hour trains are like it's rough, right? It's like super packed. Sometimes like okay, let me just stay like 5:15, 5:20, and then sometimes I creeps later. But like just because they're like whatever, I missed the rush hour trains, like I'm okay. But then it gets the same thing. It's like, oh, if you wait too long, again, it's like you wait past rush hour, then trains are way more spread out. So you're kind of at the mercy of public transportation, which helps people unfortunately like stay later because they're like, okay, whatever, we're already here. Like, yeah, because if you miss that train, then you're there for another hour, right? What are you going to wait at the train station? So like, it's stuff like that. But culture wise, I definitely see what you're saying too. I would say like my understanding of it. I mean, I moved here post COVID, but like people say that like pre COVID it was way more
Okay.
intense. Like people, especially because most people are 5 days, and that's okay. Like way more like we're here till like 6, 7, super late. Versus like post COVID, people have chilled out a lot, especially as people went hybrid and like that super grind mindset is definitely chilled.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, the next thing I wanted to talk about, ooh, how do I get this guy? Were you a big Excel user, by the way, when you guys had it?
Yeah, I liked it for just like because people are like, oh, like how are we supposed to like, especially for architecture stuff? It's like, how are we supposed to solve this problem? And I'm just like, why don't we just all sit in a room? Because you can have like five, six people on it. And I'm like, draw what you think. Like, what do you think we're talking about here? And it's like, oh, people like draw a box. Like, I think this goes here. And it's like, no, actually, sometimes just like shifting a box around like changes your understanding entirely. But it's kind of cool. I also feel like it's good. Like if people like people may not feel comfortable contributing in like a meeting of like five, six people talking, but if they're just all just drawing on a screen, like it's way easier for people just like maybe you add an arrow, change a color, and it's like you feel like more
Yeah.
comfortable. I don't know, contributing to kind
Do
of
you
the
guys
idea.
not have a canvassing tool then now?
No, we have a Lucid, like Lucid charts, if you've heard of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's way more intense. It's like way more serious. Like Excalibur was way more chill. You know what I mean? You could, like when you type, it look like you have your. It's like looks like handwriting.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. It's like whiteboarding. Lucid is like way more
Okay.
serious. It almost reminds me of like AutoCAD. If you ever
Okay.
think about it for like engineering games, like, man, this is so
Jeez.
serious. Like,
Okay. But yeah, I think I put this question down for us just because since we were both in like FAST, which is essentially like an analyst program, I I know you like literally, like have made friends through it with like Shiva and Ivan. And I definitely made like a lot of friends and even like my roommate through FAST. And since leaving, I think even when I was at Chase and I was on that new like software engineering team, I don't know, I didn't really hang out a ton with like my team outside of work. And now maybe it's like proximity because like I live further away from my coworkers, but I don't know if like my coworkers, like if we kind of like hang out. And I guess in LA, I haven't had like too much success in making friends. Like sometimes I'll like try to hang out with like Maria's like co-residents and friend group since like it's kind of more collegiate since they're still in residency. But yeah, how have you found it, I guess, since like post leaving fast and like moving to New York? How have you found like just like making friends and moving to a new city?
yeah, no, I mean, like, I think it's a great question. I feel like it's like the perpetual debate, and like they joke, it's like I don't know if it's a joke, but like as you get older, it's
Yeah.
harder, right? I feel like that's what I've heard. It's like, especially when you get to like mid late 30s, people are like it's like really tough to make friends, and like unfortunately, that's what they say. Like, I guess you just lose friends over time. Not everybody, like ideally that doesn't happen, but it's like people just like drift apart. The work thing is interesting too because yeah, some people are very much just like I just want to come into work and I don't want to hang out with anybody here. I guess because for some people it's like hey, like hanging out with people outside of work like you just end up talking about work sometimes or like or even just like it just reminds them too much of like oh like they really want to separate like the work from the not work or it's like people joke it's like you've seen Severance it's like hey like I'm a completely different person like my work person is a completely different person from my like my real life person so some people are very much
Yeah.
like that it's sometimes I'm like that's kind of crazy like you're just like super chill outside of work and then as soon as you get here you're not like I don't like I'm not. I mean, you and I think that's why we became friends because like we didn't operate like that. We kind of like mess around and still talk the way we
Yeah.
were. But some people like that helps them. They just like to have that separation, like to have that like that difference. Yeah, like you did mention, I made some of like my closest friends, through work. But at the same time, like what people say here is like you kind of just like run into random people and like sometimes it eventually leads to something like a friendship or like oh you meet them at like an event or like oh you played soccer so you met somebody like a soccer
Mm.
league those like I guess because a lot of people are there for the same reason it's a lot of the, it's like a catalyst of like I'm here just to like meet people I'm here to like make
Yeah.
friends yeah but I don't know it's like out that's the like big thing or some people like so like I don't drink personally, but it's like a lot of people say like, if you go to like a bar and like people like some people just like chill at bars. Like Astoria has like a big culture like that. It's like the bars here, like a lot of people are locals and they've like been at that like going to that bar forever and their friends like the
Mm.
bartenders and people like, oh, just go meet the bartender, say hey, and like they'll introduce you. And I'm like, that's like a really cool vibe. It's not my vibe, but I see that's like how people meet.
Yeah. I feel like for me, like I think the ingredients to making friends is, and the reason why I think I've had success making friends at work and school is just you see them every day and you're forced to see them. So it's kind of like a slow burn where you don't have to make the best first impression because you know you're gonna see them in class like for the next like 9 months, right? So then you just like there's no pressure to like try to hit it off like immediately. It's almost like dating. There's no pressure to like have a spark. It's just like, one day you say, "Hey, what's up?" And then like the next day you might have like a longer conversation. But I think part of it's just like doing things together, like this like every day, like continuously. And then part of it, I almost feel like it's not quite as intense as like trauma bonding, but yeah, when you're having the same experience, then you can like talk about it, you like going through the same things. And I feel like, yeah, when you're not at work, it's hard to find those things, right? Like even like adult sports leagues and stuff, like people like don't go to every game and there's like no practices. So I guess what I'm saying is it's like hard to find things like that where you're like, forced to like see someone over and over again, and then things that like you going through the same experience like the exact same way. I feel like there's just like less and less of that since like leaving school and like not being in like, I don't know, having the same age group like an analyst class and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. I mean, it's like I just didn't think about it. It's like, yeah, you are like forced to hang out with them. And like my perspective used to be, it's like some people like you're like you said, you're forced to hang out with them, and it's like you just have no interest in even like talking to
Yeah.
people. Like that for me, I'm like, that's kind of crazy. Like I admit some people are not very social, so fine, like that's okay. But it's just like no interest in any type of relationship, purely like I've heard people say it's like I'm just here to work. Like I have no interest in making friends. I'm like, sure, I guess. Like if that's how you want to live life, like that's okay. It's like I'm not there. Like I'm not just trying to like be friends with everybody. That because that's just like not the type of person I am. But like I'm not against that. It's like if somebody's friendly, like I'll talk to them. Like we can become friends. Or like it's like, you know what I mean. If you see someone like with a mutual interest, like oh whatever, they have like a video game theme thing, then you start talking to them about that. It's like yeah, like you said, if we're all there together. But I think the hard thing though is like I think it's harder, I guess, the older you get is like, how do you break that? Like, we chill at work all the time, but like, do we ever chill outside of work? You know what I mean? I feel like that's like a big barrier to break. It's like the first time you meet someone outside of work, that's like a big, like, we're not just meeting in like a work context.
Yeah, yeah. So have you had like success or like do you have like a friend group like from college in New York right now?
Yeah, a few. So it's like some from college and then like randomly like some from high school who I haven't spoken to like a long time. And then it turns out they were like up here. That's one interesting thing about New York. I feel like people like just end up gravitating because there's so many people. It's like random people from like your different stages of your life, like one random guy or whatever will just like gravitate here. You're like, oh, you remember that guy from like you kind of knew, and you're like, oh yeah. So it's like I wouldn't call it a friend group as much as like a group. I mean, it's a group of people that I'm friends with, but they're not friends with each
Okay.
other. It's more like people like, oh, I'm chilling with this person this day or that, which is kind of cool. I feel like that's also like kind of the vibe of the city of like, oh, like it's a completely different experience one day. Oh, this person lives in Brooklyn, so I'm gonna go to Brooklyn. And it's like I'm in a completely different place. Oh, this person lives like Upper West Side. Okay, I'm going there. It's like completely different
Yeah,
vibe, which is interesting.
yeah. No, I was gonna say like do you guys like hang out like consistently or like I guess is it just like kind of one-offs? Because I asked that because like this might sound super lame, but I am on the market for friends here. And I was telling Maria that I'm like, dude, I'm not asking for that much. I just like want to have like a beer or like hoop or like climb with someone like once a week. But I feel like if I don't see someone once a week, like yeah, we're friends or maybe like friendly, but like I don't know, maybe I'm just like used to a sort of relationship where I see someone like once a week and we kind of like hang out and see each other, like tell each other about our weeks and stuff like that. And so if I don't like spend at least once a week or at least like someone in that proximity, I'm like, like, are we like really good friends or are we just kind of like get a drink or have lunch every once in a while, you know?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I mean, like candidly, like I'm not the most social person. Like I'm like a little more introverted. Like that surprises people when they talk to me for a while. But like I'm more introverted. So like I go through phases where very similar. I'm like, yo, like let's chill all the time. And then it's like, but I also go through phases where I'm just like I like just want to like play video games like by myself. Like when sometimes I play video games with my friends online. So it's like that's also a way of chilling, right? But it's just like I'm just like I just want to sit here. Like I don't want to do anything after, especially after work. I'm like just want to go to the gym and just hang out by myself. So I like once a week like for that'd be someone that's like a very close friend in my opinion. It's like I'm seeing you like once a week and like we're really close friends versus just like more like oh like you're doing something I'm doing something like let's meet like something along those lines. But I totally see where you're coming from. It's like and yeah for sure that like see I feel like something like that it'd be like I don't know like you said the sports league's not as consistent, but I feel like that at least forces like almost like a once a week if they go
Yeah.
all the time. It's like that forces like a once a week or someone you meet at the gym or like climbing. That's like oh like I see you here all the time. Like maybe that makes it easier.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Cool. I wanna, even though this is the first podcast, I'm trying to make it like a tradition or just like a segment of every podcast to end with like one non-work related question. So I kind of threw this curveball out here because I think like it's a half-baked idea, but I feel like it's kind of good because, and I'll explain my reasoning is I feel like as an adult, like we're more mature than we were as kids, but we kind of have all the same needs, right? Like kids when they get hungry, they get like irritable and they're like not pleasant to like be around. And like I'm sure as an adult, I feel the same way. Of course, like hopefully I have more emotional control, but it's like everything we liked as kids, like I liked basketball, I liked like playing video games. I still like it as an adult. And in a way, I just feel like I'm a kid, but maybe I have like more responsibility, more emotional control, like things like that. But and then, like that's why I'm like, at what point did we say, hey, like it's good to exercise and be outside and just like play with one another? And then at some point we were just like, nah, like screw all of that, scrap that. We need to be inside all the time, just working continuously. So my idea is I feel like lunch is already like kind of flexible, like 30 minutes to an hour. What if you had like 30 minutes of lunch and then say like 30 or 45 minutes of like recess or like a PE where everyone just like goes outside and then there's just like sports and so I think big companies can definitely do it. Like they have the means to do it. But like everyone just goes outside and like plays a sport or like if you don't like a sport, maybe just like play cards or something outside. Like if you're not like into sports and athletics and stuff like that. But I feel like it's kind of a good idea. And another pro that I forgot to mention is I feel like a lot of people don't like the forced kind of happy hour, right? The forced like social time outside of work. This is like forced social time, but inside of work, which I feel like people won't hate as much because it's like, oh, I'm at work anyway. So might as well like I don't know play with my manager play kickball or like I don't know like hoop or like play soccer with like people from different teams cross functional right there. So I feel like this is a pretty good idea. Do you feel like it could well one, do you think it's a good idea? Two, do you feel like there's any downsides to it? And then three, is it actually like feasible?
Yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think it's a good idea. It's like super interesting. I mean, like the concept, like the first thing that comes to my mind is like, I mean, it's lame, right? But it's just like coffee breaks. I feel like are like the close way because I mean, so I also say it depends where you are, but like in New York, it's like a coffee break. Like you generally will walk
Hmm.
somewhere and be like, hey, like, I'll walk with you, and it's just like depending on where you go, like it could be kind of far. Or like, oh, like by Hudson Yards, it's nice because like there's the High Line there, so it's even like walking across the park, like and that's like I don't know if you've been to the High Line before, but it's kind of just like it's kind of like a walkway and there's like like a little grass. It sounds sad if you live anywhere with like actual green, but it's like a walkway that's like grass, but it's like a park and there's like skyscrapers everywhere. Man, it sounds so lame, but it's cool. I promise I see it. But like even walking there with like a coworker with like coffee, I'm like, oh, this is nice. It's like this is kind of like exactly what you're saying. Like this is kind of how it should be. Like a lot of people are saying, I just want to get fresh air. Like let's just
Mhm.
go, essentially go for a lap. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty much like to some degree
That's
recess, right?
fair.
Like you walk around there, you walk a lap around. So it's like, oh, let's do another lap. Like two, I do like one on one sometimes, like a manager or whatever. It's like, yeah, let's do a lap around the building or like a lap around the High Line. So it's like, yeah, very similar. But sometimes, like, I also feel like it just helps you think
Yeah.
better, right? When you like go outside, you're like, oh, like I need to clear my head or like I just get out of the environment you're in. And like, yeah, so when you're talking about benefits, for sure, tons of benefits. But I also say, like, tangentially, like when I was in school, I did like co-ops and like two of the co-ops I did were like in like engineering world and like I was working at a pharmaceutical company and there was like a lot of physical stuff for that job. Like sometimes we had to go into like the manufacturing site itself, like change clothes entirely, like gown up. It was like vaccine manufacturing. So like gown up and then go in there, like you like move boxes around sometimes or do things. Like sometimes I was like, this is kind of cool. I kind of like that I'm like physically
Yeah.
doing something, right? Because I feel like unfortunately like with like corporate jobs like that's something that's like the tangibility is lacking in certain instances, right? You're like, oh, like I physically moved this box. There's like a primal instinct of like, wow, I did something. I moved
Yeah.
this big box from there to there. We did do way different stuff than that. We don't know. It's like anytime to like physically do something like that, it feels good. So I totally feel that with the recess piece. Like negative ones, I guess it's more just like some people are way more competitive than like you'd ever think, which I think like I'm not a very competitive person when it comes to like sports. I way more just like do whatever I think is funny. And I'm like, this is funny to me. Like, okay, like I don't really care that much if we win or lose. I'm just like, it's kind of like as long as it's like fun. I know it sounds lame, but like as long as it's
Yeah.
fun, it is what it is. Yeah. But some people are like really serious. They'll get like really heated. So like you don't know, like I guess professional relationships may be burned if like
Dude,
people get
think
animated
about
by
think about
peer
how good
pressure.
it would be for no, you see someone, see like some guy on the other team, like just super competitive and being over the top, and then like next day at lunch, sometimes you're struggling to come up with topics to talk about with your coworkers and be like, dude, did you see like Bob over there? It's just like, what's with this guy? Like, feel like if
Yeah, that's true. That's very possible. That's a good idea. Yeah, yeah. I guess to see the thing is, it's more like, what if it's like someone on your team though, and you're like, oh, like this guy, like we were totally cool before, but like, oh, they're like kind of crazy. Like they like were going off on like tennis the other day. I'm like, I know what you're saying. If it's like someone else you like don't interact with, yeah, of course you like it. What like, because the funny thing is, one of the buildings See, that's because like one of the buildings at like 277 Park, like they actually opened like a recreational area in the bottom, and it was like free to people. Then like they had like a half court thing. It was like half court, and like and people were like making a bunch of jokes about like, oh, we should totally go play. And I was like, yeah, totally. But then like, nothing like that ever like ended up materializing. But they had like so. I guess to your third thing is like, is it feasible? Like, yeah, some big companies literally have spaces like that. Especially if they have gyms there, then like there's definitely like room for it. But like the basketball thing was always really funny because like people even make jokes about it. It's like someone says, like, all right, like meet me downstairs. Like, see what happens. Like, see me on the court. It's like, I mean? It's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, so it's like, even like jokes like that were funny, but like no one ever like
Dude,
actually took it
have
seriously.
you do you watch SNL?
No, I mean, I've seen like
Okay,
some
I'll
skits.
send you this one. The skit is with Travis Kelsey is the host, and he's like he plays in the NFL. Like, yeah, but
Yeah.
the joke, the punchline of the joke is one guy's like one of the cast members is gay, and he's like, man, like I love my girlfriends, but sometimes there's like too much drama. I just want like a low, like I guess like a low I guess like a surface level like friendship, and he's like introducing like straight white guy or something, and then like they just like do random things like drink beer together, like play video games, and then like one of the punchlines is like, well, if you're ever wondering like if you ever miss like the drama and want to get in a fight, all you have to say is, hey man, I bet I can beat you in a race right now, and then they just like start arguing like back and forth, but.
So that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's true. I guess some people take that real serious.
But I will say, dude, I think like a couple years ago, I challenged you to a race. I genuinely, like, I don't know if you remember that, but I have been.
I don't remember that. An actual race? Okay, I don't
You were
remember
saying,
that.
like, I was like,
Okay. This is actually oh, this is like I think this was like a long
oh,
time ago. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not fast anymore, but maybe back then I was fast. Yeah.
oh,
Oh, so you were serious. You were like the fact that you remember that clearly, you're like, yo,
oh,
this guy never raced me. That's crazy.
yeah, dude. I think even when you came down to Dallas one time with like Ivan and Shiva, I was like, I think I asked you, like, did you bring your running shoes? And then you didn't. So I was like, damn. Like,
Oh, okay. I kind of remember that too. I was like, that's so funny. Yeah. I'm not running a long time. I should do that more. I just like yeah, I have like zero cardio now. So you definitely smoke me in a race these days. Back then you probably would have beat me too. I just like who knows?
yeah,
We'll never
yeah, we
know. No,
won't.
I'm just kidding. Do you run? I thought you don't run that much.
Dude, I've been running like once a week just because like Maria was saying, like it's good for, I don't know, your VO2 max is like a big indicator of health or something like that. So yeah, I run once a week. And funnily enough, like I usually just do like 1 3 mile lap, like at this running route. But funnily enough, I started like parts of my runs, especially toward the end, I'll just start sprinting like as fast as I can. And the reason why, I think I saw this video or something where this guy tried to run really fast and he like pulled his hamstring. And then he was like, dude, like everyone laughs at me, but it's like, when was the last time you ran full speed? And when you get older and older, you don't run full speed. And that's what happens. Like you pull a hamstring running full speed. So then I was like, dude, I gotta like, if I ever needed to literally sprint for like 500 meters, I just want to be able to do it. So that's why I did that.
I mean, it's a good idea. I just like I always say I'm gonna do it because like sometimes I like run to catch the train and like in Queens the trains are above ground, so it's like 2, 3 flights of stairs, and like I sprint up and then I'm just like kind of winded and I'm like, this is so embarrassing. Like I'm trying to like play cool like on the train in the morning, like all in like my dress clothes, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like he's like freaking panting, like, hey, and I was like, look, man, and like so that's my goal is to just like be able to sprint, like you said, like just run up some stairs and like not be winded. Then I feel like you kind of look sick. Like, oh dang, that guy just like, sprinted all the way up and he's not out of breath. Like because the opposite sucks, man. It's like tough. But I just like I used to like, yeah, I don't know. No, I used to run way more. It's like I've not done it in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have running shoes here though, so if you're ever in New York,
Oh,
I won't race you. But I have the running
well,
shoes.
well, no, now if we schedule a race, we'll schedule it so both of us can train a little. At least like not train, but at least like you run once a week so you can, I don't know, not pull a hamstring.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, will I survive? Like, yeah, probably.
Thanks for hopping on. I guess. Yeah, if you enjoy it, I'm sure I'll cycle out of people, so I'll invite you back if you like doing it. But hopefully it was kind of like just laid back and we could just like talk about stuff. And next time you can like feel free to submit questions. I know I submitted all these questions, but next time, yeah, feel free.
Of course, man. No, yeah, really appreciate you having me. Yeah, it was a great time.